Hello, everyone. My name is Duncan Agnew. I'm a fourth year here at Northwestern University from Alexandria, Virginia, in the DC area. I'm majoring in journalism and geography with a minor in religious studies. And when I'm not giving tours or in the classroom on campus, you can find me editing articles and stories for Lakefill Mag, which is actually Northwestern's only live storytelling event. And it premiered for the first time ever this past May and June. We actually produced a digital show for the first time ever. So that was a really awesome success to be a part of. So I just want to recognize, of course, that we can't have you on campus because of the pandemic right now, but I'm really excited to still be able to show you some of the highlights in Evanston and at Northwestern and still give you a sense of what it's like to go to school here. So I think with that, we can go ahead and get started on the tour. Welcome to Northwestern University. We were founded in 1851 by a group of Methodist ministers, and classes started in 1855. Those same Methodist ministers actually inspired our first unofficial mascot on campus, the Fighting Methodists. So I think we can all agree that we improved our mascot a little bit when we changed it to Wildcats. It's a little bit easier to root for the Wildcats than the Fighting Methodists. Um, and I think what I'll start with first is I'll mention this building just behind me. This is Shepard Hall, which is one of our residence halls here at Northwestern. We operate on the neighborhood model of housing at Northwestern, which means that every dormitory here on campus will be in a cluster of buildings that will provide different amenities to students. So, for example, Shepard provides basement study rooms that you can take advantage of if you're interested in working on group projects, doing study groups, things like that. And then the building just behind you is Allison Hall, which has a dining hall actually. And that's one of the biggest dining halls on campus. So we have both of those buildings here on campus in this cluster of housing, and this constitutes one neighborhood here. And depending on where you are on campus, you will still be in a neighborhood that will provide different amenities like those study rooms and like that dining hall. In terms of styles of residences that we have here, we have three different models that you could choose from. We have residential colleges, residential halls, and residential communities. Residential colleges are a little bit more of a niche housing option where they actually have themes that range from things like entrepreneurship to engineering to communications. So if you're interested in communications, we have our communications residential college that actually has a in-home theater and a radio studio for broadcasting if you're interested in that. So that's a really awesome option for people interested in communications and radio and film. So those are a few options. If you're interested in those, you can actually apply to live in those areas in those buildings if you have a demonstrated interest in one of those themes. And then you get to live in that building with other people who share that interest. You don't have to be studying that area, but there will be different academic programming and guest speakers who will target that area if you're interested in it. And then in addition, we have residential halls, which are a little bit more of a classic style of housing for college students that are co-ed, a little bit bigger, but they still have those bonding activities that they use to focus on building camaraderie, building community among people living in those buildings. And then finally, our third housing option is a residential community, which is pretty much the same as a residential hall, but it has a live-in faculty member. I actually lived in a residential community my first year here, and our live-in faculty member catered hot apple cider and donuts during Sunday night cider every Sunday night at 10 o'clock. And that's one of the ways that I got to know some of my best friends to this day at Northwestern. And in terms of our overall housing model for all students, we do have a 2-year live-in requirement, meaning all first-year and second-year students are required to live on campus in university housing. So that means about 55% of our students do live on campus and 35% of our students live off campus. Off campus is a little bit of a misnomer, however, because a lot of apartments and houses that students live in off campus during their third, fourth, fifth years here are about 5 to 10 minutes away from their classes. So they're still in the same community, same area of Evanston. And the remaining 10% of our students live in Greek housing. Greek housing actually does count toward that second year live-in requirement. So a lot of second year students do live in Greek housing. About 40% of our students participate in Greek life in some capacity, whether it be social fraternities and sororities or service organizations or multicultural Greek life. So there are a bunch of options that you can take advantage of. However, as I said, you will be in the majority if you choose not to partake in that. And I would emphasize that it's not an all-encompassing aspect of life here. You can certainly get involved in other aspects of student life. And if you do choose to partake in Greek life, there will be tons of other opportunities that you can take advantage of, and it doesn't restrict you or force you to only choose to go that path. So that's definitely a more open way of going about it, and there's tons of opportunities that you can take advantage of. And with that, I think you can go ahead and follow me to our next stop. Um, just behind me that you will see coming up is a blue light here on campus. When I talk about housing, I like to mention safety as well. This blue light system has blue lights every 50 to 100 feet or so. And basically, you can just hit that red button on the blue light, and a Northwestern police representative will show up within 60 seconds to help you out. I've never had to use it. None of my friends have ever had to use it, but that is there in case of emergency if you should need that. And again, like I said, they're stationed every 50 to 100 feet or so, so you should always be near one. And again, in terms of dormitory safety, we also have a 3-lock system in our dorms, meaning that all dormitories actually have a lock on the front door, a lock on the floor that you live on, and a lock on your actual dorm room that you can get in using your student ID. And then we also have a security guard stationed on the main floor of every building between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. every night. So that's a little bit about safety on campus. And then we're going to go up here and across the street, and we'll talk a little bit more about campus traditions and campus landmarks as well. So follow me. All right, so as we cross the street here, we are coming up on the Arch, which is one of our campus landmarks here. It's the unofficial entrance to Northwestern's campus. It's called the Weber Arch, so it's been here for about 15 years at this point. And one of my favorite campus traditions is something called March to the Arch, where all new students actually get to take advantage of this great area of campus. And all new students actually have their unofficial entrance to Northwestern by marching through this arch in a ceremony during Wildcat Welcome, which is our orientation program um, uh, at the beginning of September every year. And all new students gather. All new students gather here every year, and they cross under this arch, signifying their first day as an official undergraduate at Northwestern University. It's a great ceremony, and you actually get to march through this arch with your family members, other students, the marching band, all cheering you on along this path. So you can walk along this path as if you're marching under the arch as well, along with me. And we will get up under this arch and around the corner to the Rock on campus, which is another one of our famous campus landmarks. But along the way, I want to mention as well Wildcat Welcome, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. That's a great orientation program that lasts for 7 to 10 days every September, where you will go through a crash course of everything you need to know about Northwestern with a peer advisor who is a older student at Northwestern who will go through all of the logistics in terms of academics, class registration, buildings on campus, what you need to know, and you'll go through a bunch of trainings kind of orienting you to Northwestern and Evanston and Chicago. And that's a really awesome way to get to know new people, to get to know the campus right away. And that's one of my greatest, I think, memories when I first got to Northwestern was getting to take advantage of that program because it made me feel so much more comfortable and supported and welcomed right away. And I think that's one of the best programs that we have here at Northwestern. And as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, we're going to come up on the Rock, which is just around the corner. That's one of my favorite campus landmarks. It's kind of the center of our campus in this area. All of these buildings around us right now are humanities classes. They house departments for languages, for philosophy, religion, humanities. And so these are some of the most important buildings that you might be taking classes in, especially if you are in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences as well, which is our main College of Arts and Sciences that has about half of all Northwestern students. But even if you are not in the College of Arts and Sciences, you will still be taking classes in these areas for different requirements, general electives, things like that. But as I mentioned earlier, this is the Rock. As you can see, it's a big rock, so it has a very creative name, of course. And it has a pretty cool origin story because it actually used to be a fountain in the middle of this plaza here. And over the years, it actually, in the 1950s, started to be painted by groups of students with different messages, advertisements, events that they wanted to promote. And after a while, the university finally moved that fountain back and covered it with this wall right behind me. And it started the tradition of painting this rock um, at various times. Like I said, it's a great testament to free speech. You can paint it with any message you want. Right now, it's painted with a Black Lives Matter message with all of the social justice work going on around the country. So you'll see messages like this all the time here with the rock. And there are only 2 rules to painting the rock. You have to guard it for 24 hours, actually. And you have to paint it under the cover of night. Other than that, however, you can paint it with any message that you want. That 24-hour guarding period is basically just to ensure that if you go through the work of painting this rock, your message will stay standing for at least one day before someone else paints it. But that's a great campus landmark that you can follow and mark your time here at Northwestern with. And we'll go to our next stop right now. And I want to start talking about academics a little bit at Northwestern. So as you might know in your research about Northwestern University, we do operate on a little bit of a different academic calendar because we are on the quarter system. That means that we have about 4 quarters per year. And our fall quarter starts in mid-September and goes through mid-December. Then we have winter break, and we come back for winter quarter from early January through late March. And then finally, spring quarter is from early April through mid-June. Our 4th quarter is our summer quarter, which you can use to take classes. However, I would say most students do not take classes in the summer. They choose instead to pursue internships, different opportunities at home, work, jobs, things like that. But you can take summer classes if you are interested in that. And one of the great things about the quarter system, I think, is that it provides a lot of flexibility for your schedule. One thing you might notice about Northwestern students is a lot of them double major or they minor in a different subject area or they get a certificate. And that's by virtue of the fact that we all take more classes than the average semester student, because the average quarter system student here takes about 4 classes per quarter. And that comes out to 12 classes per year, which obviously is about 2 more classes than the average semester student is taking per year. And those additional classes really provide us with a lot of opportunities and flexibility to study areas that you might be interested in that you didn't know about before you got to Northwestern. So for me, for example, I was really interested in journalism, what I wanted to do when I came here. But I kind of stumbled upon geography and religious studies because I was taking different classes in those areas when I first got to Northwestern, just to fulfill different requirements. And I fell in love with those areas because I loved the professors, I loved the departments, and I just started taking as many classes in those areas as I could. So that just goes to show, I think, that you can really take advantage and fall in love with different departments that you might not have anticipated taking a lot of classes in. And that's, I think, by virtue of the flexibility of the quarter system. And then one other thing I want to mention about academics here is that if you are in something like the Medill School of Journalism or the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, our general elective requirements are something called distribution requirements. And that's a little bit different than the average general education requirements at most colleges, because we were actually lucky enough to not have to take a particular class every year or every spring or every quarter. And we can just take different classes that you might be interested in depending on the area of study. So instead of having English 101, for example, or Science 101 that you have to take, we have different subject areas like historical studies or literature and fine arts, or philosophy and religion, or formal studies, which is a fancy way of saying math, basically. Those are all different distribution requirement areas that you can take dozens of different classes to fulfill those areas, rather than having to take a particular single class. And that way you can actually cater those distribution requirements to what you might be interested in. So someone like me, for example, I'm not super interested in math. I'm not great at math, but I was able to fulfill that formal studies requirement by taking the principles of cartography, which is one of my geography requirements as well. And I did a lot of algebra for that class and measuring the spherical distance between 2 points on a map. So that's still counted as my math class, which is pretty cool, actually. And I want to also highlight this building that I'm standing right in front of right now. This is known as Annie Mae Swift Hall. This is one of the headquarters of our School of Communication. It actually houses the departments of performance studies, radio, television, and film, and communication studies. Those are three really important departments within our School of Communication. So if you're interested in any of those areas, you'll be taking a lot of classes in this building. And there are a bunch of awesome communication extracurricular opportunities, even if you aren't taking classes in these areas. One of my best friends, Michael, actually is a radio, television, and film student here, and he's an executive producer for our only live talk show and comedy talk show here at Northwestern, which happens once a quarter. And as an executive producer, he gets to film different sketches. He writes different jokes that the host tells. He picks the host for every performance. And he basically just oversees the production of the entire show. So that's an awesome opportunity if you're interested in comedy. Michael also actually recently got a grant to film a 15-minute movie, which he got money to pay his actors for, to get equipment, to buy food for everyone on set. And he actually just finished that, and I just yesterday actually helped him edit it, and I went through it and gave him some suggestions. But that just goes to show that there's tons of research opportunities. And speaking of research, I think we can go ahead and get to our next stop. On the way to our next stop, I want to mention a little bit about research, as I said. Even if you're interested in media and communications, that doesn't bar you from taking advantage of research at Northwestern. We have a ton of lab research opportunities in science, technology, math fields. But if you're someone like me who is more interested in communications, journalism, media, you can still take advantage of our research opportunities by applying for our summer undergraduate research grant, which is kind of the hallmark of research at Northwestern. Through that grant, Northwestern shells out about $3.5 million for undergraduate specific research opportunities every year. And the undergraduate research grant gives you $3,500 to pursue any summer project that you might be interested in. So you can film a movie like my friend did. You can pursue an investigative long form journalism story if you're interested in that. Or one of my friends a couple of years ago actually used that money to travel around the world, going to different music festivals, and he wrote a paper on the culture of music festivals around the world and the differences in music festivals depending on the country that they occurred in. So I think that really just goes to show that there are tons of research opportunities no matter where you go with them or what you're studying and what you're interested in. And speaking of journalism and media, just behind me, this big building is McCormick Foundation Center, which is known as MFC for short among journalism students here. It headquarters a lot of our journalism classrooms, and it also has a fourth floor broadcast studio, state-of-the-art studio that our Northwestern News Network broadcasts from every week. They have political shows. They also have a sports show called Sports Night that broadcasts every Thursday night that a bunch of my friends are involved in. So if you're interested in broadcast journalism, you might spend a lot of time there. We also have a ton of different extracurricular opportunities here as well, such as the Daily Northwestern, which is our daily newspaper at Northwestern. A ton of journalism students and media students are interested in that, and they become reporters and editors for the Daily. But even if you're not majoring in journalism, but you're interested in writing and reporting, you can still definitely take advantage of that. There are plenty of students who aren't in the journalism field who do still report for the Daily Northwestern. My personal favorite campus publication, just because I'm a little biased, is our premier student magazine, which occurs and prints every quarter. So 3 of them come out per year at Northwestern, and it's called North By Northwestern. It's a 64-page magazine, and I've gotten to write features for them, write lifestyle articles, culture articles, and I've been an editor for them as well for the past almost 3 years at this point, which is pretty crazy to think about. So tons of publications that you can take advantage of here at Northwestern, broadcast journalism opportunities if you're interested in media. And in terms of the academic requirements for our middle school of journalism, we have a crash course in basic reporting exercises for your first year. So those are classes like reporting and writing and multimedia journalism and the philosophy of modern journalism. But once you get through those, you really get the opportunity to explore your specific interests in journalism. So you can take things like documentary filmmaking. You can take things like politics, media, and the Republic, which is probably my favorite class I've taken at Northwestern. So you can really explore tons of interests, whether it be photojournalism, documentary filmmaking, or feature reporting, magazine journalism, things like that. So those are kind of the basics of our academic requirements for journalism and the extracurriculars that you can take advantage of in things like communications and media and publications. So getting around this corner as well, this is the second journalism and media building. This is known as Fiske Hall. And when we'll get up in front of it, you'll actually see that there's a big sign that says the Mccormick Journalism Center, named after Robert McCormick. So this is our second building. It houses a bunch of classrooms as well, and it houses our dean's office and a bunch of offices for our faculty members. And speaking of faculty members as well, we do have, in terms of classes, we have an average class size of about 20 students at Northwestern. About 77% of our classes are 20 students or fewer, and only 2% of our classes are over 100 students. And that means that we get a lot of real in-person instruction with your full-time professor, where you get to go through stories with them, go through edits, and they can give you real feedback concretely in class and get a lot of one-on-one time with them. However, even if you are in one of those bigger classes, all professors are required to hold office hours each week. So as I mentioned before, a bunch of journalism professors have their offices in this building. So if I was interested in going through a story and getting edits back, in addition to my classes with them, I could show up during their office hours, sit down, go through my story, and run through edits, suggestions, things like that. And they are super helpful, really open. And even if you're not available during those specific office hours, you can easily make an appointment with them as well. So I think that just shows a little bit about how open our professors are to helping students. And actually, all classes are taught by full-time professors. You'll never be taught by a TA or an assistant professor or anything like that. You'll be taught by a full-time professor, which is a really unique thing about Northwestern that I love to brag about, that you'll get small classes in most of your classes with full-time professors who have a ton of expertise and experience. So I think that's the essentials of academics at Northwestern. These are the two buildings that headquarter journalism, as I mentioned earlier. So we have Fiske Hall, and then just behind it, as we passed earlier, the McCormick Foundation Center. And as you follow me along these paths, we're going to get around this big building just behind me, which is actually the Segal Visitor Center. If you were on campus right now for a campus tour, that's where all campus tours leave from. You would do your information session in that building. So it's kind of cool just to get a view of it, because that's where you would be doing a lot of your activities if you were visiting Northwestern as a prospective student or family or parent. And that's one of my favorite buildings on campus as well, because it's beautiful. You get a great view of Lake Michigan in the information session room, auditorium. And we'll get around this building and get a view of Lake Michigan and the Chicago skyline. And speaking of Chicago, as I go around this path, I want to mention where we are in the world right now. So we are in Evanston, Illinois, which is a great college town in its own right. We have everything you could possibly need here, from Target to CVS, to things that you really want but don't need at all, like Insomnia Cookies and Burger King. So really, we have everything you could possibly need in this area of Evanston within a 5-minute walk of here. But I like to mention how we are only 12 miles from downtown Chicago and 3 miles from the Chicago city limits. And there are tons of ways to take advantage of a big city like Chicago that really offers a ton of world-class experiences and opportunities. And we're starting to get a look at this lake here. We'll get a better look as we get around the corner. We have a beach in front of us, so I like to joke that Northwestern is, in fact, a beach school. UCLA has nothing on us. But as I was mentioning, tons of opportunities in Chicago. So there are 3 ways that you can primarily get to Chicago from Evanston. We have the elevated train, or the L, which is the primary public transportation option. That's about a $2.50 charge to go anywhere in the city. We also have the Metro, which is a little bit faster, but a little bit more expensive. And then my personal favorite option is the Northwestern Intercampus Shuttle, which is actually a shuttle connecting Northwestern's Evanston campus to our downtown Chicago campus. That downtown Chicago campus houses our med school, our law school, and our graduate journalism school. Um, so that is actually a free ride from Evanston to downtown Chicago, to the heart of downtown Chicago. Um, and that is actually something you can take advantage of with your student ID for free. So you can get down there any weekday night for dinners, for plays, for sporting events, things like that. So that's a really awesome opportunity to take advantage of here at Northwestern. Um, and in terms of opportunities in Chicago, we actually have our Northwestern Activities Fund, which provides money for students to go see free showings of different plays. For example, this past year, people went to see Dear Evan Hansen and Mean Girls, which just premiered in Chicago, and Hamilton, which are a ton of big name plays that provide opportunities for students at Northwestern. And you can just go see those plays on the dollar of the activities fund, which is really, really incredible. Um, so I think that just shows the connection that we have to Chicago, some of the opportunities that we can take advantage of. Um, and as you can see, I'm standing right in front of a bunch of boats right now because I am on the Sailing Center beach. Um, just to my right ahead of me is the Northwestern Sailing Center, which is a really unique thing that we have at Northwestern in front of Lake Michigan because we do have such great access to Lake Michigan. When I first got here, I was convinced it was an ocean. I had no idea how big the Great Lakes were. I had never been to this region in my life before I got here, but I love having a beach right here, especially on a hot summer day like today where you can take advantage of the cold water and jump in as well, or just read on the beach and things like that. So this is a really unique opportunity we have here. As I mentioned, we have a sailing center. We have a club sailing team if that's something you're interested in. Um, and the way we like to end our tours here, we are at our last stop, sadly. But the way we like to end our tours here is by mentioning why we personally chose to come to Northwestern. And for that, why Northwestern? When I was applying to Northwestern, I was really interested in the school because it seemed to check off all the boxes that I was looking for. It's right on a lake, and I love being on bodies of water. It's in Evanston, but really close to a big city like Chicago. It's got a great journalism school, and obviously that was really important to me for a while. And it still is important to me, of course. Um, However, I can honestly say that throughout my experience here and as I got to Northwestern, the real reason why I love Northwestern is the people that I get to take advantage of here and how much they care and welcome you, care for and welcome you. And a quick story that I like to highlight just to show the welcoming environment and the collaborative environment that you can take advantage of here at Northwestern is that when I applied to Northwestern, I applied a regular decision, and Northwestern was actually the only school that I received a personal letter from after I applied, where my admissions officer assigned to my profile actually sent me a letter detailing why he thought I was a great fit at Northwestern, why he enjoyed reading my application, different suggestions that he had as I was making my decision. And that was just really incredible to me because I think that showed the overall like personal nature of Northwestern, where so many people care so much about you and will go to great lengths to welcome you to this community. And that really just put my whole mind at ease as I was coming into college because, of course, college is a hard transition and it's tough to get into this whole transition that you go through. And that really, really helped me go through that transition because it showed me how welcoming and supportive everyone in this community is. And I think that's something that I really want you to be a part of as well. So, with that, that concludes the tour. Thank you so much for coming along with us. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will actually be monitoring the live chat during this live premiere of my tour. With that, go Cats and have a great day, everyone.